Hey, sports fans, this is Robert with WTP Sports Dudes. I had to jump on real quick so I could discuss Texas Longhorns' second scrimmage that they had earlier today, bring you up to speed on what took place in that scrimmage, and let you all know how that Texas Longhorns football team is looking. Of course, you all know they have a whole lot of talent on this Texas Longhorns football team. They are preseason number one in the coaches poll and preseason number one in the AP poll as well. So that lets you know that everybody out there, or at least the majority of the people out there, believe that this Texas Longhorns football team is going to be really, really good because they have a whole lot of talent. Before I get into the scrimmage notes, let me let you know the format, the context of how this thing went. They ran 90 plays. They did a full length of the field scrimmage, also red zone, so you can see what your team looks like in the red zone. On the full length scrimmage, they went ones versus twos and twos versus ones. So that way you can still have good on good, because whenever you play at a university like the Texas Longhorns, you're going to have a two deep that got really, really solid players. And Texas was able to do that today in this scrimmage with their ones versus twos and their twos versus ones going the length of the field, which they got some really, really good work. Last week, it appeared that the defense was a little bit ahead of the offense, but this scrimmage, the offense picked it up, and they were better in the length of the field, giving the defense some trouble and making some plays. Ryan Wingo had a really nice catch that went for a deep pass, and we also had some good runs out there as well. So it's very, very exciting to know that the Texas Longhorns are correcting some of the mistakes they had in the first scrimmage. Of course, in the first scrimmage, they had 10 offensive penalties where they had some kind of snap infraction or some kind of false start or something to that effect. This scrimmage, they only had two. To go from 10 to 2 means that there was a lot of emphasis put on fixing these unforced errors and these pre-snap penalties and things like that, which is something that you know you can't have in the game of football. Otherwise, your offense will stay behind the chains, and that's a disaster for your ball club if you have to come from behind because you're behind the chains out there on when you're playing offense. We did have a scare with Trevor Goolsby, who went out a couple of possessions in the practice and didn't come back in. Just a precautionary thing. He's going to be okay. Steve Sarkisian said if he needed to play, or if it was a game that they needed him to be in, he could have went back in and finished. He banged up his hand a little bit, but he's going to be fine. He's going to get back out there. Also, Emmett Mosley didn't play in this scrimmage again from the wide receiver position. So that's a little concerning. I hope we can get more details on what's actually going on with Emmett Mosley, because that's a position that we really want to see flourish out here on the football field for the Texas Longhorns. And I think he's a vital piece that they brought in as a transfer in the portal to help Texas out at that wide receiver position. But of course, the rest of those guys played really, really well. Parker Livingston was sort of maybe shut out by Malik Muhammad, which one thing that Steve Sarkisian wanted to do in this scrimmage today was he wanted to give Malik Muhammad, the cornerback, who a lot of people out there who watched him towards the end of the season thought that he was getting burnt quite a bit. And so they wanted to give him some real serious work today. And he was up for the challenge, and he played really, really well. And you didn't hear a whole lot about Parker Livingston in this scrimmage because Malik Muhammad did really, really well, played really, really well in run support, and in coverage. He's a guy who can play a lot of the different techniques that you need your cornerback to play. So he's really going to be really, really dynamic. And I know that my man FanDuel Zaya of the FanDuel Zaya podcast is not a huge Malik Muhammad fan. He thinks Malik Muhammad can be taken advantage of. But I'm here to tell him right now, Malik Muhammad will be A-OK out there at the cornerback position. And he played really, really well today. Still talking about the wide receivers. Khalil Lockett played really, really well. He's finding his way into that circle of trust for Steve Sarkisian in that wide receiver position, along with Dylan McCutcheon, two true freshmen. I think those guys are going to find themselves out there on that football field more than we probably thought. We probably thought it was going to be a circle of trust of four guys, being Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore, Parker Livingston, and Emmett Mosley. But with Emmett Mosley not being able to go in some of these scrimmages, Khalil Lockett and Dylan McCutcheon have really solidified themselves. They're really, really talented guys. They come from really, really good high school systems, and they've been able to transfer the skills they have from high school out there to the college level. And they're going to work their way into that circle of trust so that we can get 5 to 6 guys in that circle of trust who are going to get some burn out there on the field at that wide receiver position. So I was really excited to hear about that, about those wide receivers. Also at running back, I'm telling you now, we really thought that they were going to bring C.J. Baxter along slowly, and they probably will continue to do that. But the fact that he is playing the way he's playing, he's very confident in the knee. He's very confident in the fact that he can go out there and play and take contact. They're going to increase his load in practice. They increased his load in the scrimmage today. He's probably going to become more of a factor in this first game against Ohio State, where we thought that maybe he might get 1 to 3 carries. He might be more up around 5 to 7, maybe even 7 to 10 carries in this Ohio State game because he feels really, really confident in that knee. He's not favoring it in any way. He's going out there and playing as if he was never injured before, which is a good sign for a guy coming off of an ACL and a PCL because he had a really, really serious knee injury a year ago. But he's playing with a lot of confidence with that knee, and that's very, very exciting to hear. So we're going to see a lot more of him out there quicker than what we thought. Also, Trey Wisner, those guys are going to be 1A and 1B once we decide that we're going to work Cedric Baxter back into a starting role. So either one of them could be the starter. It's going to be like a 1A, 1B situation. But Christian Clark is probably going to be the guy who is going to be that Jaden Blue for our Texas Longhorns this year. He's a guy who can make people miss. He can hit the home run ball. He's very, very crafty with his running skill. And I think that this guy, when he gets his opportunities, Texas Longhorn fans are going to be very, very excited. Opponents, though, they're going to be shaking their heads like, wow, this dude is giving us the business. And I'm excited to hear that Christian Clark, who's also coming up of a season-ending injury last year where he tore his Achilles, is playing really, really well, really, really confident on that Achilles, and he's doing a really phenomenal job. And I'm anxious to see him to get out there in game one and on to the rest of the season because he's playing really, really well as well. Hopefully, we'll be able to get Jared Gibson up to speed because I know when we get down there into the red zone, if C.J. Baxter is not to where we need him to be, which I think he's going to be fine, we can use Jared Gibson if he can hold on to the football, if Christian Clark can hold on to the football. Those are some other guys that we can use down there and have some different packages for them to really have some different things we can do against the defenses we're going to face. So I'm excited about the running back room and what they did in scrimmage number 2. Now, in the red zone last week, the offense sort of won the matchup in the red zone. But this week in the scrimmage, second scrimmage, the defense sort of won the red zone. They were able to make some key stops. We heard some really, really good things about Hero Canoe. He was being able to get in the backfield and disrupt some plays. He also blocked the field goal. And I know my man FanDuel Zay is going to be excited to hear that because Hero Canoe was a transfer from Ohio State that he's been asking me about. Have I been hearing any news about Hero Canoe? I think Texas defensive tackles will be able to go 6 deep. Hero Canoe being one of those guys, and he has really been playing really, really well from last week into this second scrimmage. So I'm excited for him to be able to go out there and show what he can do, being a transfer into Texas from Ohio State. So I'm happy for that young man. Hopefully, that'll allow Texas to only play their defensive tackles 20 to 25 plays. A lot of fresh guys out there, fresh bodies out there throughout the game. Hopefully, all of them understand their role and what they need to do, which I know they're going to be fine. They were going up against an offensive line, like I said earlier, that Trevor Gooseby went out for towards the end of that practice for a couple of series to end the practice, and he didn't return. But the run game blocking was very, very good today. They were able, in the scrimmage, they were able to open up some holes. They were able to get some push. I'm talking about Neto, our center, Cole Hudson, DJ Campbell, Brandon Baker. Those guys were able to get some push. They have been really, really challenged by this defensive line room and edge rushers. It's probably one of the best groups in the country. So our offensive line is really, really getting some work. Even though they have inexperience, they're getting to work against one of the best defensive tackle rooms and defensive edge rusher rooms in the country. So they're getting some really, really valuable work out there on the field against the guys that they're facing every day in practice and during the scrimmages. And they did a really, really good job. Much better than what we heard last week, where we heard that the offensive line couldn't do nothing much with that defensive unit. But this scrimmage, the offensive unit got up to speed and were able to make some things happen. Much like I was telling everybody, Steve Sarkisian and Kyle Flood, they're going to have their guys ready. One thing that those two coaches are really, really good at doing is making sure that they understand their personnel and what their personnel do well and what they don't do well. And they're going to be able to scheme and strategize to help play to those players' strengths. Every year, if you look at the Texas offensive line, since Steve Sarkisian has been there, they've run so many different schemes with their offensive lines based on the offensive line strengths. So if you go back and watch them, they did something different with Bijan Robinson than what they did with Jonathan Brooks and what they did last year with Trey Owens and not Trey Owens, with Trey Wisner and Jaden Blue. So these coaches know what they're doing, and they're going to be ready game one. And I know some of the Ohio State fans have been talking about how their defensive line is going to dominate the Texas offensive line. But I'm telling you now, their defensive line at Ohio State is not any better than the Texas defensive line. So those guys are going to be ready, as far as I'm concerned, when you're talking about the Texas offensive line. So I think we're going to be in good shape. It's going to be a challenge. Of course, it's the Ohio State Buckeyes. So, of course, they're going to have talent over there. They're going to make some plays, but they're not going to dominate the way some of the Ohio State fans have been talking to me about them dominating. But so let me continue on with our second scrimmage. Some of the things I really liked is when we did take Trevor Gooseby out, we already know who was going to be that first deep offensive tackle that's going to fill in either at left tackle or right tackle. And it's going to be his name is Jaden. Oh man, his name is right on the top of my head. Jaden Chapman. He's going to be the player that comes in and spells either Trevor Gooseby or Brandon Baker at the tackle positions, which lets us know we know who's going to be the guy coming in at the guard position. We know if our center goes out, who's going to be coming in at that center position and how guys are going to shift. And we also know who's going to be the guy coming in at that tackle position if we need to bring in a tackle to spell Trevor Gooseby or Brandon Baker. Those are all things that great teams are able to figure out when they start practicing in fall ball. And Texas already has their formula. They already know who they're going to be moving in and out whenever something happens, either at the center position, the guard position, or the tackle position. That's how you got to have your depth so that you know you're going to be okay in case of any scenario that might take place out there with your offensive line group. So I'm excited about that. And they did really, really well today, being able to move Jaden Chapman in at that left tackle position. And it seemed really, really seamless. So that's a good sign for Texas going into week one against Ohio State. Another note that I picked up on from this scrimmage was that Murad Watson, he went out for a little bit, but that's one of the defensive tackles. He could have went back in the game. If it was a real live game and they needed him to be out there, he could have went back out there, which is great to know that it wasn't anything really, really serious. Just a precaution. Just keep a guy out. You don't want a guy hurt before you get into season one. Outside of that, there were no serious injuries. No one went out for the season or is going to be out on any extended amount of time, which was really, really good. Like I said earlier, they played 90 snaps. When they got in the red zone, it was ones versus ones, which was a really, really good battle. And the defense probably won the day. But last week, the offense won the day in the red zone. But the length of the field, it was the offense today and the defense last week. So those are good signs that guys are working hard and fixing things that they need to fix. So now I'm quite sure that the defense will play a little bit better this week. Even though they won't have any more scrimmages, they'll start working on the Ohio State install and making sure they can keep all of their players much more healthier than what they have been going into the first 2 weeks of practicing fall ball. Another note that I picked up on was that the run game was really, really good today. It was better than it was last scrimmage. So that's a good sign because Texas is going to have to be able to run the football in order to be really, really effective, especially if they want to be able to play to Arch Manning's strengths, which is being able to get the ball down the field. And if you can run the football, you can start throwing the ball over some guys' heads. So hopefully their run game will stay solid and they'll be good in that area. Another thing that I found out about today's scrimmage was that Steve Sarkisian is really, really confident in what C.J. Baxter is going to be able to do, so he's going to give him more. I know I mentioned this earlier, but it's such a big part of what Texas wants to do offensively to have C.J. Baxter back and working. And he even said this himself that he's 100%. He's confident in the knee, and he's running like he's confident in the knee, which is really, really good. Defensively, the defensive backs are looking really, really good. The thing that I wanted to find out today was since Texas is coming out in 12 personnel, what defensive unit they will bring out. So, of course, they take the nickel off, which is the guy who guards the receiver in the slot. So they take him off. They call that position the star position. So they take him off the field and bring in another linebacker. And that linebacker was Christian Littleton. So he was able to start off the game today when they went 12 personnel when Texas came out with their first team offense, which I wanted to find that out so I could see what they would do on the back end. Would they slide Michael Tabb back to the safety position and then maybe move Derek Williams or Jelani McDonald off the field and keep Tabb back there? And they were able to circulate all three of those guys back there and make sure they all got some action. So whenever Texas plays someone who it has a tight end driven offense, Texas will know what to do, what unit to put out there, what players to put out there, and they did really, really well. I'm excited to see that Derek Williams is really, really coming on strong from that knee injury at the safety position. It's good to have a guy like Michael Taft, who we know is one of the best safeties in the country, second team All American last year. He can also roll in that piece, and also Jelani McDonald, longer guy, tougher guy, bigger body. All of those guys in that defensive secondary are really, really good. We got a nice battle going on over at the other cornerback position between Jalen Gilbo and Kobe Black. Kobe Black is on Jalen Gilbo's heels, and Kobe Black is a true sophomore, and Jalen Gilbo is in his fourth year here at Texas. But they are playing some really, really good competitive football, which is what you want to see, because you want to be able to have a 2-3 deep. You want to be able to have four corners that you can roll out there on the field and not be worried about those guys being out there. And Texas has that. They actually probably got 5 or 6 guys that they can roll out there and be really, really confident in what they can do. They're really, really high on Grayson Littleton. I think his name is Christian Little, the linebacker. And then Grayson Littleton at the star position. They're excited about him. They're excited about Cade Phillips. All of those young guys they're excited about. The one guy that I'm waiting to hear about, because he has been injured for a while. He played baseball and got injured. He was injured during the baseball season with a hammy. Now, we all know if you ever had a hamstring injury, you know somebody on your team, if you played sports, when you get that hamstring injury, you really just have to rest it. And that's what we're doing with our man Jonah Williams. But we're excited to know that he's on our Texas team. And at some point, once that hamstring is healthy, we're going to get to see what that young man can do. Hopefully, he'll be up to speed by mid-season, and we can see some action from him. Maybe even in one of those 3 games that we have when we play on our non-conference schedule. Maybe we'll get to see Jonah Williams. But that's pretty much all I had. Let me check my notes to make sure I haven't missed anything. We're excited about Warren Robeson at the cornerback position, Jordan Johnson Rebel at the safety position. Texas has a lot of guys that they can roll out there, man. And Ty Anthony Smith at the linebacker position is really pushing Leona LaFau. He's actually playing both of those linebacker positions, splitting time at both of them, so that way that Anthony Hill can get the kind of break he needs and Leona LaFau can get the kind of break that he needs, and they're playing really well. Spence at the pass rushing position at the edge, he played really, really well today. So being able to hear all of these names, all of these players, all these different positions, lets you know that Texas is in really, really good shape going into the season. If they can stay healthy and not have to go into their third and fourth string guys at certain positions, they're going to be really, really tough to beat. I'm glad that they had a really good scrimmage today. They didn't have anybody that they're going to lose for any extended amount of time. We've gotten through the 2 scrimmages that we're going to have. There's no need to do any more scrimmaging. Now it's all about install. Oh, let me mention this. They tackled really, really well today. They had some issues tackling a bit last week, but today they tackled really, really, really well. So I wanted to mention that. So we'll be doing install for the Ohio State Buckeyes the next 2 weeks. I'm quite sure we've already been working on some concepts for that Ohio State game. Steve Sarkisian was probably doing that in spring ball. And then during the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks of fall camp. Now he'll really go ahead and roll those things out. And I'm quite sure those players are going to be like, oh, man, well, we worked on this during springtime, and we worked on this for the first 2 weeks, but we didn't know that this was a part of the game plan for the Buckeyes. And so that's how Steve Sarkisian and his coaches roll. They're going to give you everything you need against your very first top-notch opponent. And this year for the Texas Longhorns, it is the Ohio State Buckeyes. Last year, it was the Michigan Wolverines. And the year before Michigan, it was Alabama for 2 years. And you see how well Texas played in all three of those games. You should expect them to play really, really well this first game against Ohio State. At least I expect them to, and I'm quite sure all the Texas faithful expect them to as well. So thank you for taking the time to listen. Please make sure that you check out those YouTube pages scrolling across the bottom. My man Mossberg of Level Up Sports 10, my man FanDuel Zaya of the FanDuel Zaya podcast, my man Parlay Poe of the Blitzburg podcast, and my man Postgame 86. Go subscribe to all of their channels. And I'm Robert with WTP Sports Dudes at WTP for Life. I appreciate you tuning in and watching this show. Make sure you share the video, subscribe, and check us out every time you see a notification pop up on your YouTube page. And today I'm out. Peace.